We're all here for another 27 ounces? Yeah, let's do it.
From working as the right-hand man to one of the most prominent members of the show to beginning a career as one of the most successful mine bosses out in the Klondike, here's how Rick Ness found the biggest gold mine ever. Those who have the pleasure of knowing how amazing the Gold Rush TV show is will be able to tell you how fascinating the characters on the show are. If the fans of the TV show that's broadcast by the Discovery Channel aren't fascinated by the captivating adventures undertaken by Parker Schnabel, the promising young miner who grew to fulfill his potential as a gold miner during the 14 seasons of the show, they must have been interested in watching Tony Beets, the wily veteran of the show, develop from a consultant to the so-called king of the Klondike. Considering this, you may forgive fans for forgetting about Rick Ness, one of the initial cast members of the show. Although he did begin his career on Gold Rush all those years ago back in 2010, he may not be so popular on the show because he started out as Parker's right-hand man. Following 8 seasons with the gifted miner, Rick decided that perhaps it was time to stand on his own 2 feet as a gold miner. At least that may be what people thought was going on when he returned during season 9 of the show as a mine boss. Since then, Rick and his fearless crew have decided to take on the harsh and unforgiving conditions of the Klondike.
There's got to be another option. None of us want to walk home empty-handed.
So that they could come away with that sweet gold. Soon, Rick and his crew will find that their work out there in the Klondike region of Dawson City in Yukon, Canada, was more than just a search for gold. Indeed, they'd soon discover that they had actually set off on an adventure of a life. This adventure would prove to be filled with tales of trials and tribulations, as well as tales of success that would leave the Gold Rush community captivated by the gold miners.
Tailings are all the way back in the sluice box. We're losing gold. Shut that thing down.
When you observe how the fans were taken with this particular mining company run by Rick Ness, you'd find that they probably found it so captivating because they had probably never seen someone handle all the stress and uncertainty of the gold mining business like the main man himself.
Probably seriously consider shutting down camp. Jeez.
Even during his days as Parker's foreman and right-hand man, crewmen and viewers at home were quite impressed with the composure shown by Rick while facing the forever unforgiving conditions of the Klondike and the problems that came with it. Going forward, he carried on with this level of competency following his return to the show in its 9th season. Looking to hit the road running, Rick and his men held on steadily to overcome several obstacles so that they could extract 1,150 ounces of gold from the mines during his first season as a mine boss. Pretty impressive, don't you think?
That's our biggest gold wave ever.
Yeah, boys. That's awesome.
Amazing.
It proves to be a testament to his and his team's tenacity and willpower. While as much as it helped him confirm his status as a gold miner, he was able to win the admiration of the fans and the respect of his peers when he was able to overcome several obstacles that all these miners had to face themselves. Soon, this trial by fire began to help the new mine boss gain the experience that he needed, and by season 11 of the show, he was able to extract more than 1,000 ounces of gold from the soil, which helped him and his team make $2 million or more. One could say that this was finally the season that he had cut his teeth when it came to being confirmed as a competent mining boss, and we may be compelled to agree with them. Following this success in season 11, Rick decided that it was time to push the ante a little bit further by aiming for a larger target in the future.
It is scary because it is a big commitment, but it's also exciting because, I'm going to own my own ground.
That's why he figured it would make a lot of sense to extract 2,000 ounces of gold from the mines in the Yukon during season 12 of the show. We think that made sense too. Not only would it bring them more money, it would also help them solidify their reputation as gold miners. However, Rick would soon find that sometimes plans are easier made than executed. The problems with his goals soon became clear when he realized that he may not have the number of men that he needed to reach his new 2,000-ounce target. In order to combat this problem at the beginning of the season, Rick decided that the best thing to do is to improve his operation by purchasing some massive $500,000 equipment to compensate for this lack of men on his workforce. Incredibly, this seemed to work because at the end of the season, Rick reveals that this expensive equipment helped him and his team extract 2,047 ounces of gold from the lines that season. However, this success would end up being short-lived, as Rick had to take yet another hiatus from the show even before he could fully enjoy his victory. Turns out that he had to deal with some pressing issues that needed some addressing immediately. He had been suffering from some depression, and as we all know, one must take the utmost care of their mental health. Thankfully, the rest of the crew, along with the fans back at home, were understanding enough to let the man have his break. That's why they must have all been so excited when they realized that the boss was coming back to the show when season 14 started. They couldn't wait to see if he could pick up from where he last left off, and with any luck, this may result in the discovery of even more gold than ever before. However, before he could set off on any more gold mining adventures during the season, he found that he had to raise the capital needed to fund this chapter of his gold mining career. That is why he must have been gutted when he had to sell his mother's home to make the money needed to enter into this new gold mining endeavor.
I put everything I had into getting ready for this season.
Hopefully, Mama understood that this is what needed to be done for him to succeed in his new assignment. At least he'd still have the fans who are waiting with a lot of eagerness as they hope that he'll be able to surpass his previous highs that he was able to reach before his career was so affected by his mental health. Well, they will be delighted to find that those figures of the past were chicken feed compared to what he has been able to extract from the mines this time around. With so many ounces of gold being extracted from the mines in the Klondike region, it looks like Rick and his team are there for serious business. Someone's got to get Mama that brand new house after all. It must be wild for the fans to watch as Rick transformed from Parker's right-hand man to the successful mine boss that we see today, especially as he had been able to line so many ounces of gold from the soil while they were only halfway through the season. What sort of work rate is that? If anything, his accomplishments tell us a tale of a man who was ready to go through any difficulty so that he can achieve his goals, especially after the tough times that he had to endure during season 13 of the show. This was when he took that much needed time to work his way through that seasonal depression. Well, whatever he did during that time must have worked wonders, because he returned to the show to become a gold extracting machine unlike any other who had made their way to the Klondike. To be honest, these qualities of tenacity and strong will in the face of adversity had been visible in Rick even when he was Parker's assistant. His ability to learn quickly and adapt to problematic situations helped him back then and now. He is reaping the rewards of his intelligence and experience as he helps his team extract monumental riches from the mines. The fans must have loved to watch this progress too, especially from the time he decided to stand on his own as a mine boss back in season 9 of the show.
You guys know I've been talking for years now about going mining on my own, and as you know, it's happening.
They must have loved how he developed from only believing that he can extract only about 1,000 ounces of gold from the mines to now believing that they can extract almost up to 50,000 ounces of gold, even before they've spent half of the season out on the mines. It must be fascinating to them as they watched him grow in such a manner, especially as he had to endure his seasonal affective disorder, SAD, a kind of depression that seems to be linked to the passing of seasons to certain individuals. This must have been a lot for Rick, especially because he was someone who never believed that he'd suffer from any sort of depression, as he had never experienced it in his life before now. This would have made it even more difficult for him to identify what was going on with his mental health when he began to experience his issues. Again, it must have been a relief to all when he was able to work through his problems. Perhaps this must have taken a turn for the worse when he had to get his mind around the death of his mother. At least now he may just be able to fulfill his potential. To be honest, this is a blessing for both Rick as well as his crew and the fans watching at home, because at least now they have a living proof that someone is able to overcome all that adversity so that they could reach their potential. It must also be acknowledged that his return during season 14 to achieve all the success that he had achieved so far also came with a huge personal sacrifice on his own part. Perhaps this showed how ambitious the man was, as he was willing to do all it took to achieve all this fame and fortune. While it may seem as though he may only be attracted to the glitz and glamour or working on the Gold Rush TV show, it must also be noted that his return also highlighted his dedication to gold mining. Perhaps that is why he set off on a daring 190-foot deep test drilling project. All this is done with his career and reputation on the line. as they already have to deal with the prospect of this deep test drilling project being a failure, as it has resulted in the extraction of gold at a lesser rate than they ever expected. As they looked at the 1,200 ounces that was extracted during this effort, a figure that's less than the 2,000 ounces that they had expected to extract with such efforts, one may wonder how much resilience Rick and his team may actually have left.
Step closer to our 6,000 ounce goal that we set.
As the team worked hard to achieve their goals, there must have been some worry across everybody's face when they realized that they didn't have much time left to mess around in the Klondike because the winter was fast approaching, and that would put an end to all their activities out there. As the team wonders about how they're going to carry on, they were surprised when Troy Taylor, the owner of the land that they were mining on, came up to them with an interesting proposition. Incredibly, it looked like he may not be into the mining business anymore, and as such, he was looking to see who he could sell his land to. As you can imagine, this leaves Rick in a position where he has a lot of food for thought. By his calculations, he'd need to extract about 150 ounces of gold, or the equivalent of about $150,000, to begin the process of acquiring this land from Troy. This leaves Rick in a strange position because while he may feel like he may be able to extract this amount from the mines, he cannot ignore the fact that this may put a lot of strain on his already hard-working crew. As such, if he was going to be able to pull this off, he was going to have to find a way to get creative with it. Eager to get to work, Rick decided to take certain measures to see if he could adjust his crew so that they could achieve the money needed to buy the land from Taylor. After all, if they owned the land, they'd never have to worry about dealing with a landlord again. As such, the first order of business for Rick was to push a Yukon ironworker known as Kyle Lawson to take charge of both the wash plant facilities at the same time. We hope that it actually worked out for Kyle, who would confess that he was rather inexperienced when it came to these machines.
You know, we had a few setbacks this week.
Nice.
If there wasn't so much damn water down there, if that 6-inch pump would have been able to handle it, we would have been a little farther ahead than we are.
Luckily, Rick's calculated decision proved to be the right one, as Kyle actually exceeded expectations by extracting the additional 150 ounces of gold that was needed for the down payment on Troy Taylor's land in the Yukon. Unsurprisingly, this encouraged Rick to commit even further by deciding that he was actually going to go ahead to buy the land from Troy Taylor. That would help him gain full control of some of the gold-fertile land in the Yukon, and not even the potential financial dangers of this decision could dissuade him from making this move. That said, we cannot ignore the fact that Rick must have taken a step back so that he could weigh his options and make the best move for himself and his team. After looking at the options before him, he believed that he was willing to take the risk of paying this non-refundable down payment on the land. That showed his commitment to the cause, and that he had the self-assurance and resolve of a leader of his own claims in the Yukon to do so. That may be the only way he could win the season while establishing his dominance on the show. Soon, Rick came to realize that the position that he was currently holding wasn't that of risk, but of a rare opportunity within the mining industry. This was because, as he pondered on the matter, he soon realized how advantageous it must be to own the property there. After all, Lower Duncan Creek, the gold-fertile land, was integral to the team as they attempted to reach their objectives last season. And this year, it was also important to the crew because this was where they were able to mine about 250 ounces of gold in a little more than a month. As such, one can say that this must be one of the choice locations for gold mining in the Klondike. As advantageous as it may be to own this piece of land, it must be said that the place isn't without its flaws. For starters, it appears as though the stream may be rapidly running out of funds. As if that isn't bad enough, it looks as though only a small portion remains that could support the activities for such a short period of time. Be that as it may, Rick may have to endure such risks, especially as he understands that he will need to increase the rate of his investments in the area if he is going to have a chance of growing and developing his mining business, just like the likes of Parker Schnabel and Tony Beets. Looking for some advice as to whether or not he should push on with his plans, he decided to consult with a qualified dirt mover known as Brennan Rule. This discussion also involved a discussion on the need to investigate some of the land upstream while maintaining the same pay layer. This was because of the possibility of a risk.
There's got to be 27 ounces down there somewhere.
Yeah, man, I want to do something, but What can we do?
We'll find something.
They fear that there is a possibility that the pay streak in front of the creek that was buried behind the ice to the west may continue that way. As scary as that may sound for Rick and his gold mining business, all this means is that there was a chance that they may find more than 1,000 ounces of gold in the area. Only a possibility, though. Consequently, the mountains above Kino have become a new point of interest to these gold miners. However, as there may be too many risks involved in such a promising area, Rick is forced to deliberate carefully on his next decisions. As he considered his position, Brennan was left to face the problems caused by the frozen blue clay in a frozen cut that seemed to hinder his work with his massive bulldozer. Now he has to seek Rick's advice so that he can get the perfect gravel that he needs from the site. Now the pair had to ponder if they had to keep trying to go through the difficult clay, or if they should try to find a solution by working around the problematic clay. As they struggled to come up with any immediate solutions, the team decided to take a break from the problematic frozen clay.
It's a pretty sad sight. This wash plant should be cranking out gold this time of year, and instead it's sitting there covered in snow.
Soon, Rick realized that it may be a bad idea to continue with the dig there in an area that doesn't have gravel because he needed the ground to thaw first. This helped the team realize how close they were as they were able to make merry of the matter despite it being such a pressing problem. Rick's girlfriend was especially helpful in the matter as she was able to provide some fun and lighthearted elements to the situation. Despite all these problems juggling in his head, Rick is able to take some encouragement from having the largest gold weigh-in of the season so far, despite being unable to break through the frozen cut. Sure, they had suffered some financial loss due to this inability to make this dig, but they were still able to celebrate the fact that they were able to extract a lot of the gold as the season drew to a break due to the winter. Nonetheless, the adventure continued as the team went about their business. Despite the many ups and downs that follow those who work these rather difficult mines and the unpredictable world of gold mining, they were able to celebrate several victories, starting from the amount of gold that they were able to extract from the soil during Rick's rookie mining season as a mine boss. There were so many moments to consider a success, from his 6-month hiatus to the excitement of extracting 1,000 ounces of gold worth about $1.2 million. The team was delighted to hear that they would only need about 27 more ounces to meet their target for the season. As you can imagine, all the tension that may have been in the air before the final weigh-in must have been immense as they reacted excitedly when the scales showed them that they had extracted 132.49 ounces worth of gold to complete their goals. Now that they had broken their 1,000-ounce barrier by extracting about 1,105 ounces of gold so far, they knew that their future was bright. Not only has he assured the future of his team's family, Rick celebrates by giving each team member buckets of gold.
That's a 30-ounce bar. Believe it or not, I do know what I'm doing up there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking you to do this.
Hopefully, the future will have many more gold extractions for them. From working as the right-hand man to one of the most prominent members of the show, to beginning a career as one of the most successful mine bosses out in the Klondike, here's how Rick Ness found the biggest gold mine ever.